Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm continuing my historical career starting in 1951 using Pro Strategy Football 2026, and I'm going to be going through the off season between the 1970 season, which I just completed, and the beginning of my 1971 simulation. As you can see, in 1970, I just completed that. The champions were surprisingly the New York Giants, a team that in real life finished 9-5. A good team, but not a great team. Not a team that made the playoffs. They just were edged out of making the playoffs that season. They were led by Fran Tarkenton, and they were a team that again was pretty decent. But they lost a few key games during the regular season that cost them a chance to get into the playoffs. It was the Cowboys that won that division and ended up going to the Super Bowl and losing to Baltimore. As you can see in my simulation, the Colts made it to the Super Bowl, and they were upset by the Giants in what was actually a classic game. It was a game that saw the Colts jump out to a 10-0 lead early on, and then the Giants came back and took the lead right before halftime on a touchdown pass from Tarkenton to Don Herman. And then the biggest play of the game, and really kind of the story of the game, was the turnovers by the Colts, and the biggest one happening at the beginning of the third quarter when Willie Williams intercepted Johnny Unitas and returned it 53 yards for a touchdown. That gave the Giants a commanding two-score lead. They didn't have the two-point conversion back then, so an 8-point lead was pretty major back in 1970, and they would hold on to win. The Colts had an opportunity late in the game, and they actually had a 4th and 1 or 4th and goal at the 1-yard line, and it was something that I think in today's day and age, and even probably back then, I think most coaches at that point in the game would have probably have gone for it. Given the way the game had gone, um, I think that the way the defenses were playing, I think they would have probably have gone for it, knowing that hey, if they didn't get it, there was still about 7 minutes to go in the game. They would have had the Giants pinned back at their own 1-yard line, and they still would have probably gotten another opportunity to move the ball into the end zone before the game ended. But they went ahead. They chose to kick the field goal. They closed the gap to 2 points, figuring, hey, we'll get the ball back and we'll be able to drive down and just kick a field goal. And they did get an opportunity. They did get a chance for one last drive, but they could not make it into field goal range. And back then, field goals were not automatic. There were no really great kickers in the same sense that you see kickers today. There were nobody was automatic, and particularly a guy like Jim O'Brien, who was a rookie that season. You guys probably remember in real life, he was the one that kicked the game winning field goal in Super Bowl V. So again, he's well known for that, but in the grand scheme of things, he was not automatic. He was probably not as good as Pete Gogolak, who was the kicker for the Giants. So anyway, questionable call there in terms of a coaching decision, but that's the way the game played out because I'm playing CPU versus CPU. I'm not touching it. I'm basically doing commissioner mode and letting the teams play it out and letting the CPU decide. So that was how that game ended. Just looking at the history of the league, you can see here that the Colts had an opportunity to become the first team to win a second Super Bowl. So they failed to do that. So far in the first 5 Super Bowls, we've had different winners each year, but they've all been from either the NFL or the NFC. So that's interesting. Again, a contrast to real life where after the first 2 Super Bowls, the AFL won the next 2, both in upsets, and then the Colts, who were actually an NFL team, transferring over to the AFC, won the first Super Bowl after the merger as a member of the AFC. So a little bit different there. But nevertheless, this was the Giants. I believe it was their 4th championship. Let me take a look at that. Based on wins, let's look at that. So So if I look at this, yeah, so they've had 4 chips. So they're right behind Green Bay in terms of the number of championships won since 1951. So so there you go. So now I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to advance to the next season. I'm going to tee up 1971. I'm going to go ahead and select that mod. It automatically pulls it up as the next season. And it asks me to confirm that. And it's telling me how many players are retiring and how many players are being added. So we'll go through that. Let's go ahead and let that go. And now the first thing I like to do is I like to go ahead and pick the schedule. You can see it's already set up with, it's going to be at the Super Bowl is going to be at Tulane Stadium. And we're going to go ahead and select the schedule, 1971. And it automatically defaults to what the correct playoff format should be, which is 6 divisions, 2 wild cards. And now we're just going to confirm the league artwork. Let's see, we're in the NFL images folder. We're going to use the 1971 championships folder, and the common folder is NFL 1971. Modern goalposts, but they're still at the front of the end zone. Default sleeves are going to be short sleeves when it's warm, and it's going to be long when it's not. So we'll go ahead and do that. We have the option of medium sleeves too, in some cases, if we want to do that. Could tailor that based on whatever the game is. Let's see what else. Yeah, I think we're good there. So let's go ahead and let's go. And now we're in week 1. So the first thing I do before I kind of go through everything is I like to, well, let's take a look real quick, see if there's any changes. It's, again, second season after the merger. All the divisional lineups are the same. You still got the NFC East, Central, and West, the AFC East, Central, and West, same teams. I don't think there's been any changes in terms of the looks. They all have the same helmets, same artwork. Might be some subtle changes, but nothing major. All ready to go. Okay. So let's look at the transactions. So these are all the players that moved from one team to another. In the off season between 1970 and 71, I like to go through this and just see if there's any big names that jump out. So I won't. In the past, I've kind of gone through and named a lot of players, and I won't do that here. I'll just kind of scroll through this slowly. You can see which names jump out. So nothing, no real big names yet as I go through this. Dallas had some big moves, as you can see there. Lance Allworth, Gloucester Richardson, Billy Truax. Those are all key players that were signed over to the Cowboys. Broncos made a lot of moves in the offseason, as you can see. Let's see. Looks like Elijah Pitts goes back to Green Bay. Let's see if there's any others that jump out. Ken Burrow comes over to the Oilers from New Orleans. That's where he'll spend the rest of his career. Jim Otis moving over from New Orleans to Kansas City. Lance Rensel moves over to the Rams from Dallas. So Dallas replaces one number 19 with another number 19 as they get Lance Allworth. Excuse me. Let's see, Jack Maitland, who was the starting fullback for the Colts in the Super Bowl. He's moving over to Boston. Well, now they're the New England Patriots, I should say. That's one change. The Boston Patriots are now the New England Patriots. And they also get Reggie Rucker from Dallas. See what else here. You see some players appearing twice, as you know, as I've mentioned in the before. You got some players who might go both ways, so they appear as two different players. They could also be kick returners or punt returners, so that sometimes comes into play. Let's see. Roy Torella signs with Pittsburgh. Roy Jefferson, who spent that 1 year with the Colts, he goes to Washington. Billy Kilmer goes to Washington from New Orleans. That's a big move. Redskins signed a lot of players. Verlin Biggs, Jack Pardee. Wow, Richie Pettibone, Speedy Duncan. So they were busy. So now's your draft picks. These are all the players that were drafted. And it's really in order of when they were picked. You can see Jim Plunkett was the #1 pick overall, and that's true to history. So he's picked by the New England Patriots. Dan Pastorini goes to the Oilers. Let's see the big names here. John Riggins goes to the Jets. John Brockington, that's a big name for a few years there. He goes to Green Bay. Isaiah Robertson to the Rams. Let's see. Jack Tatum goes to the Raiders. Jack Youngblood to the Rams. Julius Adams is picked by the Patriots. Jack Ham, that's a big one. They're going to Pittsburgh. Dan Deerdorf. Phil Villapiano. Let's see what else here. Dave Elmendorf. I'm just seeing the names that are familiar to me because this is when I grew up watching football. It was in the 70s, mostly in the late decade. I was still too young to really follow things this early in the decade. But again, these names jump out to me. Ken Anderson, that's a big one. Maybe one of the most underrated quarterbacks of all time, if you ask me. Guy should probably be in the Hall of Fame. Lyle Alzado, Clarence Davis, Dwight White. Let's see. Mel Gray. That's the original Mel Gray. I know there's two Mel Grays in the NFL. He was the first one, the wide receiver for the Cardinals, not to be confused with the kick and punt returner for the Lions, who come along later in the 80s. Bob Chandler, Harold Carmichael. See, Ron Jesse goes to the Lions. Mike Wagner goes to Pittsburgh. Looks like he started out as a punt returner mainly. Oh, there he is as a defensive back. Okay. Now we're at the two. For some reason, it stops keeping track after 256. So you're getting you're seeing these players in all different types of orders. So there you go. And now your undrafted free agents. These are all the ones that are rookies but did not get drafted, or at least they don't have a draft position in the game. Maybe some of these were drafted. I have to go back and look. See if there's any big names that jump out. Vern Den Herder. I didn't know he was a free agent. I'll have to check that. Most of these are names I somewhat recognize, but not huge names. Now, there's a big one. Archie Manning. I could have sworn he was drafted. We'll have to check that and see if that's something we need to fix there. Glenn Edwards. So, all right. So that's all the movements that took place. So again, what I like to do is I like to simulate the first half of the season because I want to get through this career and go from season to season until we get to the modern era. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on each season. I know I hate to do that, but I figure what I do is I simulate the first half of the season. If anything jumps out to me in terms of looks like a good game that might have been impactful, I'll look at the highlights. But generally, I'll just quick sim through the first half of the season, and then the second half I'll play. We'll do like a game of the week each time I play. Um, I'll come in and show that game and upload that to the YouTube channel. Show the highlights from that week, and do that all the way until the playoffs, and then do the playoffs and then the Super Bowl. So let's go ahead and take a look at week 1. And let's go ahead and simulate, see what happens. Okay, so there's week 1 in the books. The first tie, I mentioned this before. There's always a lot of ties because they didn't have overtime yet. So we'll have quite a few of those. There's usually 1 or 2 a week. Let's see, Cincinnati beats Philadelphia. Miami beats Denver. Minnesota, big win over Detroit, 31-0. Those are two good teams in 1970. New England wins their first game as the New England Patriots and upsets the Raiders. That's a big one. Rams open with a victory, 26-10 over the Saints. Low scoring game here. Well, that's an upset. Chargers upsetting the Chiefs, 6-0. And then the Redskins defeating the Cardinals. Okay, let's go to week 2. All right. Colts defending AFC champions. They go to 2-0. Miami also goes to 2-0. They defeat Buffalo 35-13. Kansas City loses again. Another low-scoring game, 8-6. What's going on with the scores here? Scores were lower back then, but that's insanely unique to have, lose the first week 6-0 and then lose the second week 8-6. So what's going on with Kansas City's offense? Minnesota goes to 2-0. The Patriots are 2-0 with rookie quarterback Jim Plunkett. So let's see what he's doing. And he's the MVP in that week 2 game. Gets a touchdown pass. Let's show this one. This one's from 38 yards away. Plunkett to Roland Moss. All right. San Francisco goes to 2-0. Washington goes to 2-0. The defending champions there. The Giants are now 0-2. There's another tie. Dallas and Philadelphia. That's an upset. Boy, you wouldn't think that would happen. Let's see what's going on here. Defensive ball game, obviously, 7-7. Eagles tie it up here. And then it looks like the Cowboys fumble the ball. Okay. Notice Craig Morton's in that game. Let's see. Is Staubach hurt? He's injured. That's not good. That's not good for them. All right. Cincinnati's undefeated. They're off to a quick start. Oakland gets back on into their winning ways. They win 48-27 over San Diego. And the Jets are 0-2, losing to the Cardinals. Let's go to week 3. There's a big game, Washington at Dallas. Let's see what happens there. Cowboys eke out a win, 10-3. Raiders and Browns tie at 14. Kansas City loses again. They're 0-3 now. That's shocking. Here's another, again, low. These games are really low scoring. I wonder what's going on there. I simulated this season just as a one-off a few times, and everything looked normal. So I don't know. Maybe it's just, again, sometimes things just happen randomly. But a 3-3 tie, that's weird. Let's see. What else here? Miami remains unbeaten. They're 3-0, as is Minnesota. Baltimore goes to 3-0. They beat New England, giving them their first loss. San Francisco's 3-0. They beat Philadelphia. All right. Pittsburgh with a big win there. And the Giants are 0-3. All right, let's play through this one. We'll take a look at the standings. Okay, let's see. Colts are 4-0 now. They beat Buffalo. I think Miami loses their first game. Cincinnati, that was a big matchup there. 28-27. Let's see what that looks like. Virgil Carter, boy, big game. 300 yards, 3 touchdown passes. That's back in 1970. That's a you didn't see that very often. Let's take a look at all short passes. There's 11 yards out. Let's see what that looks like. So the Bengals look like they're going to be good again. They were good in 1970. It looks like they're looking good in 71. Browns defeat Pittsburgh. Dallas beats the Giants. The Giants are now 0-4. Denver upsets Oakland. Oakland's off to a slow start. We'll see how that pans out. Chiefs lose again. They're 0-4. Jets are 0-4. New England's 3-1. Minnesota remains unbeaten, as does the 49ers. That's a big win for San Francisco, beating their arch rivals, the Rams. And the Redskins go to 3-1. Let's take a look at that Rams 49ers game. See how that one ended up. That was a field goal from Bruce Gossett. Short one. Wins that game. And that was in the final seconds of the ball game at Candlestick Park. So this is their first season at Candlestick Park. All right, so we can go to the current game, but let's back out here a second. Let's take a look at the standings. Let's look at the NFC East first. Dallas is on top by half a game, which is about right. That's about how things looked in 1971. Minnesota is comfortably ahead of everyone in the Central. And so is San Francisco. They're 2 games ahead of Los Angeles. Still a lot of games left to play, but that's looking pretty good for them. Colts are unbeaten, but you got Miami, New England right there at 3-1, so that's a competitive division. Cincinnati's 4-0, and Denver is on top of the West. So the Broncos have been pretty competitive the last few years. All right. So we're going to play through week 7. So let's go ahead and we have 3 more to go. All right. So Atlanta upsets Los Angeles. The Rams are not doing well. They are underperforming in 1971. Cleveland defeats Cincinnati, gives the Bengals their first loss, and the Browns go to 3-1-1. So that's going to be a competitive division there between those 2 teams from Ohio. Let's take a look at that. 28-26. Let's see how they won that game. They were down 26-21 after Virgil Carter threw a touchdown pass to Bob Trumpy, and then Fair Hooker, an 11-yard touchdown pass from Bill Nelson that wins it. There you go. All right. Minnesota goes to 5-0. Denver keeps rolling. They're 4-1. Kansas City finally gets their first win. They defeat Pittsburgh. The Steelers are off to a slow start. You can see there. Miami beats New England 10-0. They go to 4-1. Dallas remains undefeated. They do have the tie, but they haven't lost yet. They're 4-0-1, defeating New Orleans 17-10. Buffalo remains winless. They lose to the Jets. The Jets get their first win. Giants go to 0-5. That's shocking. That's the Super Bowl rematch there, if you will. Way different circumstances, as you can see. The Colts go to 5-0. Let's take a look at that real quick. Tom Matte with 2 touchdown runs. Breaks it to the outside. And they won that game in New York. So tough sledding for the Giants right now, and it looks like I don't know. We'll have to take a look at the injury report and see. Maybe there's some story there as to why some of these teams are not playing as well. San Francisco is 5-0. Washington goes to 4-1. Excuse me. Let's take a look at the injuries. Let's see, anything major? No, not really. Dwight White, Art Shell, that's a big one for Oakland. And but nothing major. Everyone's who's injured is maybe out for 1 or 2 weeks. Nothing that looks in, and because they're doubtful, that means they could still play. You might still see them get some stats. So there we go. Let's look at week 6. And let's go ahead and reveal. Atlanta goes. They're 3-2 now. 3-2-1. They defeat New Orleans. Denver defeats Cleveland 10-7. Dallas wins big over New England 42-3. In real life, that was the first game they played at Texas Stadium. Chicago and Detroit tie at 14. Washington 7-3 over Kansas City. Another low-scoring game. Rams even their record, beating the Packers. And here was a showdown here between two unbeaten teams. Wow. 6-3, very low-scoring game. Now, for what it's worth, I will say that I believe I remember seeing a copy of this broadcast. It's out there on YouTube. That 1971 game between these two teams, and I think the final score, if I'm not mistaken, was something like 10-3, or maybe it was 13-7 or something. It was very low scoring. So this, as much as I'm getting tired of seeing these kind of scores, 7-3, 6-3, that one's actually plausible, for what it's worth. Let's see. Miami continues to roll. Cincinnati and Oakland, they tie. Let's see. Giants get their first win. They finally defeat the Eagles 28. They finally defeat anyone. They finally won 28-21 over the Eagles. Eagles are they're winless. They do have a tie, but looks like they don't have a win yet. Pittsburgh defeats Houston. Buffalo remains winless, and the 49ers remain unbeaten. A lot of teams unbeaten or winless so far. Okay, and now we're in week 7. This is going to be the last week that we simulate, or quick sim. Baltimore rolls over Pittsburgh. Let's see. Dallas defeats Chicago. That's in that. So some little history check on this one. In real life, this was the game that Tom Landry decided he was going to do a little experiment and alternate the two quarterbacks between Craig Morton and Roger Staubach. Let's see. I think Staubach was hurt in that first game. He's playing. So anyway, that experiment failed. And the Cowboys lost that game, which was, in retrospect, an upset because the Bears weren't that good in 1971, but they won that game. Let's see. Atlanta defeats Cleveland. So Atlanta's tough. Atlanta's they're doing pretty well. They're contending for a playoff spot. Let's see. Cincinnati's upset by Houston. That's a big loss for the Bengals, losing to Houston. Let's take a look there. Dan Pastorini, a rookie, 3 touchdown passes. Let's take a look see what Pastorini's doing here. This is the winning touchdown right here. All right, and that's it's Jim Byrne, I think is how you pronounce his name. Scoring the winning touchdown there. Showdown here in Los Angeles. The Rams beating the Dolphins 20-7. Giants lose again, not surprisingly though, to the Vikings 7-3. Let's see. Kansas City defeats Oakland. That's kind of a shock. 31-14. Denver over Philadelphia. Denver's 6-1. That's crazy. The 49ers, I think they're Okay, the Vikings as well. So 49ers are also undefeated along with Minnesota. And then Washington's 6-1. So they're hanging with Dallas right now. Um, so before we look at the week's 8 games, let's take a look now at the standings and see where we're at. Um, again, very low scoring season. This is unbelievable. Some of that, but I'll have to take a look at that and see if there's something going on here. I have some setting that's wrong. In fact, let me do that now. Let me see realism. So I've got use as is, increase factor by 3 for up. So I don't know why that's happening. Um, hmm, okay. Anywho, again, let's look at the standings. Dallas a half a game over Washington. So even though they're unbeaten, Redskins are providing some pressure there. And they have the inside track to the wild card spot either way. Minnesota, well, they'll have that division wrapped up pretty quickly. And the 49ers are rolling right along. The Rams underperforming, so the 49ers look like they're the team to beat there in the West. In the AFC East, it's between Baltimore and Miami. Cincinnati looks like they're a game ahead of Cleveland in the Central. And Denver's way out in front in the West, way out in front. The team that was, one of the best teams in the league in 1971 were the Chiefs, and they are way underperforming. That might be the one team that's underperforming the most in this simulation is the Chiefs. They're pretty much out of it at 2-5. So we'll see how that all ends up. Let's take a look at the stats. Let's look at the individual stats first. We'll go look at the team stats after that. This is the rushing. Floyd Little is the NFL's leading rusher right now, averaging 5 yards a carry. He's got 6 touchdowns. Well, that's Dwayne Thomas with 6 touchdowns. He's the leader there. Let's take a look at passing. In terms of yards, it's Virgil Carter, followed by Pete Liskey. Those are 2 names you wouldn't imagine would be there. Let's look at rating. It's probably a better indicator. Roger Staubach is the top-rated passer. Not surprising. Don Horn. Okay. And Virgil Carter. Touchdowns. Virgil Carter, Bill Nelson, Roman Gabriel, John Brody, all tied with 11 touchdown passes. Receiving, looks like 2 tight ends at the top there with Milt Morin from Cleveland and Bob Trumpy. Yardage-wise, it's Gary Garrison of the Chargers. And touchdowns, it's Ted Kwolek from the 49ers. Let's look at defense. Dick Butkus, boy, he's been there for about 6 years in a row now at the top. He's still going strong in 71. Sacks is Paul Smith for Denver. Interceptions, it's Ron Smith for the Bears. Take a look at team stats real quick. Defense, Washington, followed by Minnesota. And let's look at total offense. Total offense, Dallas, followed by Cincinnati. Injuries, anything here? Let's see. Again, nobody's out for the season yet, so that's good. Larry Brown, that's a big name. Harold Jackson, John Riggins, Norm Bulash. So some big names there that are ailing a bit. All right, what else? Let's take a look at week 8. So week 8, we've got, this is a pretty big game there, Rams and Colts. Atlanta, Cincinnati, that's a interesting matchup there between 2 contending teams. That might be a possibility for a game that we go ahead and look at. Oh, but we'll probably do this one. This is Here we go. Battle of Unbeatens. I think they're the only two unbeaten teams left, and they are playing each other in Minnesota. So we will take a look at that. Let's take a look at the preview and see what the yeah, boy, over under 26. Something going on there. All right. So that's going to be a low scoring game, but we're going to watch it anyway because that's, again, Battle of Unbeatens. How can you not? Let's see what else. Dallas is at St. Louis, Philadelphia, Washington. So there's really three key games, it looks like, but we're going to go ahead and do this one. San Francisco at Minnesota. And that's pretty much it. The only thing I wanted to take a look at too, well, we did the injuries. Okay. All right. So I think we're all set. So again, I'm looking forward to playing the rest of this season out. We'll see how the rest of this goes. Like I said, we had an entertaining Super Bowl, entertaining 1970 as a whole. We'll see how 1971 shapes up so far. Looks like Staubach's leading everybody in terms of passing, Floyd Little rushing, and Gary Garrison on the receiving end. So look forward to seeing how this ends up. Thanks for watching.